that they were spending a little shy of $40,000 a month on an outbound team that was third party. They had a 7% show rate, and in like 8 months didn't have one sale. Number one, we were going to do this in-house. We ended up doing 32 sales for $4 million.
This week on Under Oath, business development deep dive, when to build a team, how to do it right, and why most people screw it up.
Sometimes less is more.
A really great BDR can offset 3 mediocre BDRs.
Under Oath is powered by Rankings.io, the elite legal marketing agency for personal injury firms on the rise to the top. We break down what actually works.
Your initial approach sets the tone for all future engagements. Everything that follows that is either vastly easier or vastly harder.
And action.
Under Oath is the place where we cross-examine what does it take to be a successful revenue team. And let's welcome back the defense. Myself, the Senior Director of Enablement at Rankings. I'll be your host today. With me, of course, is Zach Ramey, the CRO of Rankings. Zach has recently got a sweet promotion to CRO, so we're thrilled about that.
Thank
and, of
you.
course, our ringer, Cole Castleberry, the VP of Sales at Rankings. Cole, how are we doing?
I'm great, everybody. I'm happy to be here, and congrats, Zach, on the well-deserved CRO title.
Thank you.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Now, Cole, you had mentioned you had something you wanted to bring to the bench before we got started. So go ahead and bring that to the bench.
Yeah. What is the best career advice that you guys have ever been given? I've alluded to this in the past, but this one actually comes from yours truly, Zach Ramey. And I think about it every time I'm in an engagement, and career advice is speed to response matters. Your presence and availability carries a lot of weight, and it's really changed the way I present myself professionally. So, Zach, thank you for such great career advice early in my sales career, because I do truly think about it every day.
Thank you.
And I had a manager, he talked a lot about career limiting moves, and to be mindful of every action that you do, some of which could be a career limiting move. Something that you might think is like, who cares? Like, I'll do this or do that. I'll say this. And like, you never know what the tipping point of somebody else will be on your perception, on your reputation. Like, you just need to be really mindful of that. And so sometimes you might think like, oh, I'm going to go to war over this small thing. And that might end up being that career limiting move. It's not that you shouldn't go to war, but maybe the way you're doing it or how you're doing it, you want to be just real smart and careful and tactical in the way you do things, and ask yourself constantly, like, is this a career limiting move, or is this something that can help my career?
It's everybody always talks about, I need a mentor, right? Like find a mentor, learn from them, follow them. Yeah, I look at every single person I come in contact with as a mentor, and I've been that way since I was probably 25, 26. And I look at every person, you're going to teach me something, but it's either going to be what to follow or what not to follow, or what I would do differently. So I stopped early on thinking like, I'm just only looking for people to follow. To be that true definition of a mentor, I'm going to take every person at face value as a mentor and decipher if it's what I should or shouldn't do to further my career, or add in something, or treat people differently, or construct something differently. And honestly, that has been one of the best things I've ever done. Is any person I come in contact with, you're going to teach me something. I'm just going to decide if it's good or bad.
That's solid. Always learning, always interacting and engaging. I love that.
It's like those people who seem to be shooting up in their careers, you should be paying close attention to what they're doing. And those people who seem to be stuck in their careers for a long time, you should also be taking notes. What's going on there? Like, what do we have in common? And maybe I should change some things. All right, gentlemen, court is now in session. The charge today, gentlemen, this is more a deep dive charge. We're going to be doing a deep dive into business development. The business development rep, sales development rep, sometimes called account development rep, that demo stage where reps are sourcing, calling, prospecting, getting prospects on the calendar for typically AEs to set. I want to really do a deep dive into that. We've had an interesting timeline. We've had an interesting process in that. Obviously, I think all of us have come from various backgrounds of seeing it being done really well, it being done maybe not so well. what does it take to make a good business development team? Do you need a business development team? What are some of the pitfalls that happen that you've seen in other business development teams, or some of the things that you've avoided, or some of the things that you can look back and say, like, that was a great decision. That's what makes our business development team great. So our first section is opening statements. This is where we take something from our specific roles. So in Zach's case, he's now the CRO. He's kind of in a higher leadership role. His view on business development is going to be different than Cole's as a VP of sales, or kind of someone who's managing the reps maybe more directly, as opposed to my role where I'm in sales enablement and I'm kind of supporting the sellers, both AEs and BDRs. So in this first opening statements, really a learning that we've had from our particular roles. Zach, let's start with you as kind of a senior leader. What's something you've learned about business development in your career?
Quantity is not always the answer, because I've been at places in the past that it's all about bringing 100 people, send them out on boots on the ground, or phone dialing, or whatever route you want to go with it. But sometimes less is more. And that it is not all about just the sheer volume that you're doing. And don't get me wrong, there's other companies that works for. It's why we have debates about these things, is because it does work for other companies in certain ways. We've chosen quality over quantity, and it has paid dividends thus far.
I'd like to piggyback on that, because I know you alluded to headcount, but I think it's quantity over everything, right? I mean, it's not always quantity, meaning it doesn't have to be quantity of personnel, quantity of dials, quantity of leads within the system. You can be very intentional with every single one of those categories and be successful. So
yeah, I think that's a good call. I think sometimes we get focused on like just the bigger number. We need more headcount. We don't have enough leads. We don't have enough dials, all this. And we kind of obsess over that. It's like, if only we just threw more bodies at this problem, that would solve the problem. And oftentimes, I think to your point, Zach, a really great BDR can offset 3 mediocre BDRs, right? And it's because you're finding somebody who knows what they're doing. They're not wasting time. They're not just coming in, clocking in, hitting minimum expectations and clocking out and hoping that a set trips in their lap along the way. I love that. Absolutely. Cole, what about you in your position? You're a little bit closer to the BDRs themselves. Obviously, here at Rankings, you were really integral into kind of building that foundational team. And now obviously you've hired people to kind of manage them directly. What's something you've learned in your role?
Your initial approach is the most important approach within the entire system. So how you first engage with somebody sets the tone for all future engagements. So making sure you're very intentional on that one, because everything that follows that is either vastly easier or vastly harder. So that initial outreach is your most important.
And say there's a leader who's thinking about like expanding their business development motion. Is it more important for them to like slow it down and be like, hang on, like what am I really doing here? Like really get it defined before you start throwing bodies at the problem and kind of fix it later. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly it. You need to have an understanding of who your target is. What is your ultimate goal? How are you going to reach that goal by talking to this person? And it can't just be showing up and saying, hey, look at me, have a conversation, because this other person's got 20 different things on their plate, and also 200 different people reaching out to them for either the same service, a different service. And I think that's a thing that's forgotten, is we put ourselves as the most important category because we need this. But at the other end, outbound wise, we're invading their time in a way. So we have to make sure that initial approach is bringing value, and we're not just asking for something for our benefit. We're bringing something to the table for their benefit.
I want to highlight a little bit different angle. This is maybe more for the BDRs themselves who might be listening. There are 2 kinds of successful BDRs that I see over and over again. There are BDRs who really envision themselves as, I am going to be a good seller, and so I'm going to work really hard, not just on my outputs, but on my conversion. They kind of got that perfect mix of like hustle, grit, and general salesmanship. And they tend to be the leaders of the pack, right? And then there are another category of people who aren't quite the leaders of the pack yet. They utilize all of their resources. And those 2 groups are the ones that get promoted and persist. And it's really that second group. It's the BDRs who reach out to me and my team who requests, special coaching, who on their own reach out to AEs, on their own reach out to product. Where they find success is they understand the business. They understand, they're leveraging tools. They just become experts in everything around them. They take advantage of all the things that are being offered to them. And that makes them so well-rounded that even they might lack in some of these areas, they become so confident in all these other things that they end up converting, and they end up being a valuable resource to the company. And they end up ultimately attracting the sets or the opportunities that they ultimately want anyway. And so that would be my advice. If you've got the hustle and the grit, keep at it. Like, you'll eventually get promoted. But if you kind of are in this other camp, or maybe you're not the number one, number two setter on your team, you should be looking for ways to really refine and take advantage of, like, am I an expert in every tool? Am I contributing in the trainings? Have I reached out to the AEs to understand their business? Am I being reflective? Am I learning? Can I point to something I was doing and now I'm doing something different? Like, those to me are the people who end up being some of the most successful BDRs. And that's just something I've seen kind of from my enablement seat. We're going to move into the cross-examination. This is where we just dive a little bit deeper into the actual, in this case, business development motion. I want to talk about structure. Cole, I'll start with you. This is probably something you think about or have had to make tough decisions on, which is kind of a structured, scripted approach. Hey, follow in this set of rules, or kind of creative freedom when it comes to business. Of like, hey, as long as you convert, that's all we care about. You can use whatever messaging you want. How do you find that balance? Do you kind of preference one side or the other? Having your BDR team follow more of a structure and giving them some creative capability, or the other way, where you have lots of creative freedom and as long as they're following a handful of structures, that's important. What do you find to be the most effective?
You're absolutely right in saying it's fine balance. It is. You have to have the mix of both, right? You have to have the structure and understanding this is what I have to do. This is my goal, what I'm looking to achieve. And in our case is, we have a set of BDRs. They have a book of business. They know that this is the lead pool that they're sourcing from. Their goal is to bring value to that client, to have a conversation with our team, simply put, right? Now, how do you communicate that value? How do you approach that? I like to give freedom of individuality, and in the same way that we all communicate differently here, if I try to box Zach into the way I communicate, Zach will probably fail, because as good as he is, Zach has his own flair, his own style. Same with you, Scott. So I am anti-script in the fact of you approach a conversation and you say this thing, but I am pro format, is in you approach the conversation with this intentionality, this framework of understanding about their business, but ultimately this value proposition to bring to the table, to show them that we respect their time, but we also understand their business and their business needs, and why a conversation with us makes sense. And how that's communicated should be at an individual level. We have a team of 10 to 12 BDRs running, and I'd say each one of them follow a framework, but all sound individual. They all sound like themselves. And I think that's truly is a winning recipe. And I know we'll dive into it's kind of the case study behind our outbound motion, but it is, there's framework, and then there's individual implementation of that framework.
So if I'm hearing you right, Cole, it sounds like as long as, like, you can't just say like, hey, get a set, however you can get a set, right? Like, just get them on the calendar. That's all we care.
Well,
right?
let's dive into that for a second, right? I'll give some historical background to what that looks like. When I first came to this business, I was tasked with training an outside team, and the outside team's job was to get a set to the business. As I broke down calls, the way they framed sets was pretending to be an agency that they were not. That resulted in calendar appointments. But it was a very big bait and switch conversation, right? yes, you got a set in whatever way mattered, but did you get the right set? Did the right value come up? And is that conversation really going to convert? No. So the answer isn't you can just go get a set however you can get a set, because there's a lot of fraudulent ways to bring about that conversation. So there has to be parameters, there has to be a framework, there has to be a guide, but it can't be on the other side of the pendulum, which is, hey, Zach, you're going to come in, you're going to say, hi, Mr. Customer, you're going to say this exact line, and this is going to get you sets 100% of the time, because that's not real. It's not human. We're not robots. AI can do that, right? If I just want a script, I'll go employ AI to go call somebody on that.
The way I think about a framework and a script, because I'm obviously very not in line with scripts and pro framework, but I think a good analogy to use about it is I want us to go from Kentucky to California, right? And a script in my mind is like saying everybody is going to board this train and we're going to go to California on the train. There's nothing anybody can do. There's no stopping at a gas station. There's no exits. Like everybody's on this same path, right? In my mind, that's a script. A framework for me is we have told everybody the exact route we want them to go. We want you to take US 23. We want you to turn here. We want you to turn here. The final destination is here. You can drive a semi, which means you're going to go a little slower. You can drive a sports car. However you want your means of transportation to end there, we let you pick that. You need to make some pit stops, learn a little bit more information than the last person, but the exits we're telling you get off on are solid. You have to get off these exits to arrive at the final destination. And that's how I kind of think about a framework compared to a script. The individuality comes in the means of transportation that you're taking in this analogy.
The moment you take the individuality out of somebody's conversation, you lose the impact that person can truly make. And that's what we look for when we're hiring too, is that individuality and the way somebody presents. We've talked a lot about our hiring metrics, but that's what I'm looking for when we're hiring somebody, is the ability to communicate in that way that brings that value to the table.
It's why I like the transportation analogy, is because we have people that are sports cars. They do go fast, right? We do have people who drive big rigs and it goes a little bit slow, but they bust down a wall when they hit, right? People already don't love business development as much from a cold calling perspective. If you can make it fun and let me be me, man, you really get a good culture and you get to get some good numbers, which I'm sure we'll dive into.
I want to touch on that, Zach. So we talk about individuality, and you want to give some amount of kind of creative liberty, as long as you're following the framework, as long as you're providing value, as long as you're positioning the company in the right kind of way. So assume a rep is doing that. That actual, when the rubber hits the road, right? You probably get 1,000 prospecting emails a day. The actual conversion, right? It can be really hard for these BDRs to stand out. What are some of the things you've seen that have cut through the noise a little bit and actually had you open the email, respond or consider respond or forward it on to me or somebody else? Like what are some of the things that stand out in your position?
Yeah, sadly, I do get a lot of prospecting emails. I wish I didn't, or LinkedIn messages, but honestly, it's kind of a teaching tool. I clip them and send them to Cole all the time. I was like, take this to the team and show them these, because this is incredibly bad. And the funny thing is it's 95% bad, which it just goes to show you how easy it is to stand out if you go about it the right way. Because most of these emails and LinkedIn messages, people are just checking a box. It's automated. They put it in a cadence system, right? Or whatever it may be. What I see that is really bad is the just following up. I think you might have missed this, right? Putting this at the top of your inbox. Like, that's the quickest way for me to block you or use you as a teaching tool for my team. Pivoting to some good things I've seen is I've had people send me gifts to get interviews or to get us to view one of their tools. I've had people look at like my Facebook and my LinkedIn and pull things that I have done. Like somebody reach out to me about a picture at a Post Malone concert that I took, and like the subject line was like, Post Malone something, right? And that obviously captured my attention and made me open it. And I just love creativity. I love it when it's personalized. Like, I love when you look like you took some time to truly prospect me. Funny enough, I had somebody call me yesterday that is job hunting. And I hear this all the time. I've had actually 4 or 5 people in the past month call me because they're job hunting. And the same sentence has been said on all the conversations. I've applied to hundreds of jobs, hundreds. And I'm like, well, what have you done? Like, what makes you stand out in those hundreds of jobs you've applied for? I'm assuming, and I always say this, I'm like, don't excuse my ignorance here, but I'm assuming you just went through LinkedIn or Indeed and just hit apply now, apply now, apply now, apply now. There was no thought given to it. And all the answers are always the same. Yeah, I did. I'd be like, I tell you what, I'm going to help you, but you're going to call me back next week and we're going to talk through this. And I want you to tell me the 15 companies you found that you want to work for that goes in line with your experience. And I want you to tell me an account executive you've reached out to at that company and you sent a loom to, or just a video message, or if you were able to find a way to send them a gift, or the recruiter. And I was like, even beyond the recruiter, because some of them are like, well, the recruiters are just so busy, then you should find the manager over that, because I bet you they get hit up even less because that's more work you have to do. And a lot of people are allergic to work, so they're not going to go do it as much. And now I've had multiple people find jobs because I like being part of the process, but it's about being individualistic about it and doing something that stands out. Because you're right. If you do just go apply for 100 jobs in this scenario and you're just one of thousands of people that did that, you're right. AI is going to kick you out, right? Because that's who's reading those resumes. You got to get somebody to, in theory, bust down the door with your resume, your name, and hand it to the recruiter and say, hey, you should go talk to Cole. Right. And that is how you're going to get seen. And then same in this, selling something to another company, selling to a prospect. It's all the same. If you can make it personalized, your odds go up 1,000,000.
Yeah. I'm to tack onto this conversation is I'm a big believer in ripping off the Band-Aid and just acknowledging this is cold call. This is outreach. I know you probably have 1,000 people who speak to this same subject, and lowering that wall. When you try to pretend like this isn't a cold call or you're not a salesperson at the end of the day, and you remove that bias from it, I acknowledge the bias head on. I'm biased here at Rankings because I think we're the best in every category. Let me get that off the table before I give you my answer. If I'm reaching out to somebody, it's ripping that off. If you get them on the phone, hey, this is a cold call, or hey, whatever it is, I think that honest approach, the more honest you can be, the better as well. Versus trying to side gate it. But as Zach said, the just following ups, I have also had the same case study sent to me 6 times a day, every single day for the last 6 months. They pull the top one off of our website and say, hey, I saw this case study on here. I'm like, you and every other single person who's came through my inbox, because it's always the same. I acknowledge something about your business, but it's not original anymore. That one's been tried and true, because I promise you, it's the same case study every day.
We had a good one the other day. I sent Cole that somebody reached out to me and sent a message, and they had reached out to me, no crap, 18 months ago with the same exact message that they sent. And I was like, bar for bar, like word for word, straight down. I was like, this is truly incredible.
I
Same tactic.
think too,
months.
like something you want to think about. Here's a free tip, right? Instead of just grabbing the top, case study or whatever, spend 10 minutes on the website. Go to every single page and look for a typo. Look for something that like is wrong. Look for an oversight, and take a screenshot. Like, hey, just so you know, this looks like it's not working anymore. Just I thought I'd pass that along, right? Like,
I'll give you mine. When I used to reach out to people on Facebook Messenger to their business page, 90% of the time Facebook logos are sized incorrectly. So I would take a screenshot of their logo, throw it through a sizing tool. Hey, I resized your guys' logo to optimize for its Facebook when I send you over. Also, here's what I do in business.
Value
right out the gate. Most time, oh, thank you so much. I didn't even realize that, but I will definitely apply this, right? When I went to networking events, I would go ahead and look at everyone who was attending and do a listing scan, was one of the products we were selling at that time. And I'd print it off for every single person. And hey, if you want to know what your scan is, come by and see me after. So it's about, Scott, as you just said, building value in your initial outreach. And I think that's what sets people apart. It's not the just following up or, hey, let me tell you how I can help you. Just go ahead and help them. Give them something.
Yeah, I often point this out to a lot of people doing business development, which is, all right, take your monthly number of sets, okay, multiply that by the year, right? Realistically, how many sets or holds do you think you're going to get this year? 50, 60? How many is it, right? Okay, that's whatever the number is it's not that many, right? And so instead of doing this like spray and pray approach of just like, I'm just going to blast everyone that is in my account book, go find 60 companies that you actually believe want to buy your product or should be on your product, and just focus on them. Learn those, like the time that it takes to invest in those companies, to be like, I know these guys, like they're the right size, they're the right fit, they have the right people. Like, yeah, it takes a little bit of extra time, but like you're not wasting all this extra nonsense time dialing a bunch of junk stuff that just is in your book because it has to be in your book, right? Like, take the time to learn about these businesses, to care about these businesses. And I promise you that will prepare you for the next part of your sales journey much more than learning how to hit dial 100 times a day, right? Like that actually doesn't help anything. What really helps is learning how to identify, like, this is a good fit, and I'm going to do everything I can to get them on the phone and talking to me because I'm confident I can convince them that we're worth their time.
Scott, I would even push back on one sentence. It's going to take more time. It's going to take more time just to look up that single account. It's not going to add more time to your day.
Right.
You're still going to put in the same like you're just re-engineering where your time's going.
Right. Yeah,
right.
exactly.
It's not Scott's not telling you to go work 12-hour days now instead of 8. He's saying maximize the 8 hours that you're working. Take that same 8 hours and reallocate it to the right places that you're doing the research on. Rather than doing a little research on a whole lot of accounts, do a whole lot of research on the right accounts.
100%.
Because most people I don't want to put in the effort, I don't want to put in the work. You're working the same amount of time.
Right.
Just work smarter in this regard.
I tell this to people all the time. It's the tip that is underutilized by the most amount of BDRs, and it's that most BDRs in any organization, they're looking for someone in the C-suite or a director or whatever, right? And I say, all right, well, have you called any of their BDRs? Have you called any of their marketing specialists? And it's like, well, no. It's like, well, why? They're not getting hit up by anybody. Call them and say, like, hey, I'm trying to get a hold of John over there. It seems impossible to get a hold of. Does he take sales calls? Do you know if he prefers X, Y, and Z? And by the way, do you guys use Salesforce? By the way, do you guys have a tool, right? Like, it's like, oh, I'm not. Yeah, I know you're not the person. I'm just trying to understand if it's even worth me trying to get a hold of Zach, right? Go take the extra effort. Go talk to the secretary. Doesn't matter. Get actual insight on this company, right? And all of a sudden you learn just from having a conversation with the non-decision maker. Oh, I know X, Y, and Z. I know the way they like to be prospected to. I know what they hate, right? And all of a sudden you talk to somebody who has overheard Zach say, like, I freaking hate it when somebody reaches out to my case studies, right? You've got the perfect email. Hey, Zach, I went out of my way not to send you a case study because I know you hate that.
I would read the entire thing.
Yeah.
Right?
I would read the entire email.
Then at the end, add the case study. I got you.
If somebody opened up with, I know you've seen this specific case study 800 times used in email, I would read the rest of it.
But what I was about to say is Cole and I have been together a long time in sales, and we have prospected together, boots on the ground, knocking on doors. And I think one of the questions that truly helped us get to where we're at today, and we would ask ourselves, is everybody else doing what we're doing? And if the answer to that was yes, we didn't do it. Right? And to Scott, to what brought that up for me is to what you just said. If everybody is calling that marketing manager, I should pivot because everybody is calling that marketing manager. Right. Once you can say, I wonder if everybody's reaching out to that BDR, like you said, probably not. Might be a good place to start, right? Yeah. Because worst case scenario, that BDR passes your name along. There is nothing more valuable in this world than a referral. And that can be in-house.
Yeah. I often would give this example when I would onboard reps, usually at an office, and I'd point out the window at a company and I'd say, see that company over there? Let's just pretend that today, and today only, I'm going to give you $1 million if you got a set with that company, but it had to be today. Would you find a way to get a set with that company? And they'd be like, well, yeah. You would like start thinking out of the box. Like you'd figure out any possible way to get that person on the phone with you, right? And oftentimes we're just unwilling to think that way. We say, well, I'll just stick to the script. I called them twice at 9. They didn't answer. I'll try them again tomorrow. And it's like, yeah, if that's your idea of hustling, if that's your idea of like trying to win a business over, it's like, it's not going to happen. You're not just competing with their time and attention, which is hard to get. You're competing with 100 other vendors who are doing what you're doing. You're competing with another 100 vendors who don't do what you do, but are competing for budget, right? And you're competing with the 10 meetings they have to structure, right? Like you're competing against so many people. And if the way that you're choosing to compete is the least frictional way of just like, hey, I didn't make it through to their, I sent the most generic email that I sent everybody. It's like, what do you expect?
Scott, and just so everybody knows, any SEO, agency, personal injury, attorney marketing firm that we go up against, we endorse that generic approach for your company. we think, please keep being generic.
The number one case study on their page is the best.
That's the route you should head down.
That's right. Yeah. Outside, yeah. If it's specifically for marketing for personal injury firms, disregard everything I just said.
Yeah.
Keep it bland.
That is how we found all of our success.
Yeah. Okay. I want to shift on to Exhibit A. So we have kind of a cool story here with our business development team, because as Cole kind of mentioned, when we first came here, more or less 100% of our leads were inbound. There's, we had no real true outbound motion. Walk us through where we started. What were some of the big kind of foundational shifts that happened? Walk us through where we came from and where we are today.
When I got hired in October 2023, Chris, our CEO, obviously, was looking to grow faster. He was hiring a VP of sales at that time, and that's what I got hired as. And I came from an outbound background, cold calling. And whenever I was going through the process, I knew obviously Cole was leading outbound efforts for another company, and I thought he would be a great addition to what we were doing. And Chris had told me that they were spending a little shy of $40,000 a month on an outbound team that was third party. We have third party partners that I think make a ton of sense, but predominantly, especially when it comes to a business development team, outbound team, I would probably 99% of the time say own it in-house. And that's what I pitched that I wanted to do and build. We came in, Cole alluded to a little bit earlier, to just tell you how bad that company was that we were using. They had a 7% show rate, and in like 8 months didn't have one sale. It was an abysmal number. Fortunately, to Cole's point earlier, we started kind of combing through everything, found those unethical sets that were done, and fortunately got us out of that contract way sooner than expected, which then allowed us the money to go start building out. I think the foundational side of it was, number one, we were going to do this in-house. That is the best way to figure out if this is going to be successful or not. When you have people that are bought into your company, what we're doing, you get to own those things. You get to test the data. Whenever you hire a third party from an outbound standpoint, they have one thing to do, and that's hit a goal, right? That's how they get their money. So, ended up hiring Cole, got out of that contract. And we kind of just went down the line, and Cole, I'll let you kind of go from when you come in.
Yeah. So the first thing, and we alluded to this at the beginning, was understanding where our value was from an outbound side. How do we bring value to the conversation from our firm to theirs and make a conversation worthwhile? And that starts by crafting a value offer to add to them. What we offer is a comprehensive overview that some firms charge thousands of dollars, and that is their business model to do. And we offer that complimentary, truly no holds bar conversationally. Come look at your business with an unbiased approach to what you look like online, and tried to make that a no-brainer conversation.
Just to recap, so step one was Zach's approach, which is like, decide to do it right, which is like, hey, we want to own this, we want control over this, we're going to do it in-house. Step two, it's like, hey, we're doing this in-house, Cole's brought in. We can't have a successful motion if we don't have a good play, right?
Correct. You have to establish the playbook first. How are we going to do this before you even have a person?
Yeah. If our BDRs, if your outbound team is just saying like, hey, have you ever heard of us? Would you like to hear about us?
Exactly.
It's like, no, I'm not really interested in that. Right. Like, so having something meaningful, it's like, hey, we want to, this thing that would cost us time and resources, we want to give that to you for free in exchange for hearing about us. How does that sound? Or obviously I'm simplifying.
And then I would say after you develop the playbook, you get the right softwares, right? So we were on Pipedrive originally. We switched to HubSpot because we need to be able to track our data. Pipedrive can obviously do what you probably need to do, and then you can add some add-ons if you're going from like your finances aren't where you need to be for HubSpot. But for us, we knew we were quickly going to grow into HubSpot. So we just went ahead and bit that bullet in the beginning when we were probably a little too small to have it. But I think we can all probably admit we're thrilled that we did that when we did, because it'd be a tough switch at this point. But I think, Scott, you got the first few, getting to a playbook, building out the software, and then looking for the hire.
Yeah, you got to have next is the right people in seat. And the people that we've been so fortunate to have, and it truly does carry the thrust of success, is the people who are executing on that. Every single person that we has is drive and conversation. They can have a good talk, and they have the hustle to want to grow and be more.
To piggyback on that, the same way you're going to make your playbook for like how you're going to get people on, you're also going to build your ideal client, I guess, hire profile, right? Because each company is going to run specific to their leaders, right? I expect certain things. Cole expects certain things. And we've talked about hiring in this podcast and past episodes, but we have a very specific style of person that we like. So how are you going to interview? What is super important to you? Are there past people that we've worked with? Are we going to tap into our networks? Which I think I've alluded to it. We've been super fortunate that Cole has had an extensive network of people that we wanted to go after, I guess, is lack of better words, to bring over. And I think that is where a lot of companies struggle. Is you can have the playbook, you can have the softwares, the people are the ones who make it go. The second you start making the wrong hires for your ecosystem that you're building, it doesn't matter. I mean, you could have the fastest sports car in the world, but if you put a 5-year-old in it, it's not going anywhere, right? Like, it's just, at the end of the day, if it's the wrong person driving the car, it's not going to go anywhere.
I think it's an important call here, because I think a mistake I've seen at lots of different companies I've been a part of is there's some of the playbook is there. Maybe there's enough of an offer, whatever it might be, and you've got a team, and you say, okay, we need to juice this team up, and so they go really hard into that kind of foundational software, and they start getting tools and tools and tools and tools, and then they say, okay, well, we got to just start throwing bodies at this, right? Like, we got to start seeing results, right? And so they overbuy on tools, and then they overhire on reps, and saying, if we just get enough bodies and we have enough software, like, that will be enough for us to generate enough business to make it all worth it. And I think ultimately, I think at Rankings, we've taken the opposite approach. We said, we need the bare. We went through this stage a little bit. We went through a real exploratory phase of software, and ultimately we ended up coming back to was like a handful of things we needed. This other stuff, it was just slowing us down, right? We didn't need it. It was extra expense. It would have just raised quotas. It would have raised pressure. We don't need that right now. Let's deal with what we have. And then similar with hiring, there were specific times where I know Chris was like, hey, you guys had a good month. Let's go hire 5 more. And Zach was like, no, like, we're not ready. We don't know if this is scalable yet. Like, let us make sure that the team is ready, that we actually can scale before we throw the gasoline on.
I think, to a point you just made, Scott, I think it's hard because softwares are so pretty. They're so flashy. They look so good, especially when they're being demoed to you. I cannot encourage a leader or a team that's building out softwares enough. I cannot encourage it enough to be simple. If you could, the simpler you can be, the process for your team, the decisions you all need to make. Like, obviously you got to get the data clean, and some softwares are inevitable to further yourself. But the second you're juggling 5, 6, 7 different softwares and touch points and all these things, you're complicating things, and it makes it so much more difficult. So many more things break. I know if y'all know this or not, but technology does struggle sometimes and we have hiccups. And the second your team can start pointing fingers to things not working, and that's why I can't do my job, best of luck to you.
I will always subscribe to the simple method, and also stress testing your environment. And you can't do so when you have 30 different things, because you can't stress test 30 different things. You can't stress test 40 different hires to figure out what's there. I go back to like grade school science, right? You got to have a controllable, you have to have all the components so you can actually observe something. And that's the way I like to hire and structure changes, everything around that. So it's the offer, it's the person, and then it's the strategy behind that, which is, a lot of people think saturation is the best method, which is just start calling everyone, anyone, and just brute force try to enter the market. And I disagree with that. A lot of outbound motions are very high caliber efforts. Make 300 dials a day, 400 dials a day, and that's how you'll get to success. But to me, that is contradictory to what I brought up in the beginning, which is your initial effort makes everything else either easier or harder. So when you take a slower, more methodical approach, intentional outreach, instead of 150 dials, it's 50 dials with the right person, the right contact, the right framing and messaging, you will be more successful in that, because you're able to stress test your conversation with the right person versus just, I don't know why this isn't working. I've called 300 people. That's a hard one to coach to or correct.
So we hire a couple people, we have the playbook, we have the softwares, we get the right few hires to kind of set the stage. Our CEO, when we first started this, he asked for 3 sales for $300,000 in the first year. Okay. Cole and I both told him that if that's all we brought in, then you probably need to fire us, because that would be abysmal. But at the end of the day, they had never had a sale of any magnitude, so that anything would have been a success at that point. But that's what was put on our heads to bring in. Got the right people, started getting some sets, got a sale pretty early on. I think in the first month, if I'm not mistaken. Enter Scott, right? Scott comes in as well for sales enablement. I think Scott even started a little bit before we got our kind of our team really ramped up. And I cannot tell you how important a sales enablement motion is to your team, because that is who is going to control those softwares, who is going to be able to test them, who is going to fix those bumps in the road. Who I've told, I'm in a couple small masterminds, and I've told people like what should your first hires be? I was like, I would almost hire a sales enablement person before I would make my first like BDR hire, or it's like I would build that team around it. If at all possible, you could do it, just because it helps facilitate so much. They can wear multiple hats if you need them to, and coach as well. There's so many things down that line. So once we had Scott in and he could list build, and we could start going after the right people, to kind of fast forward through this a little bit so we can kind of put some color on why we're so hell bent on building this way, is that first year we wanted, or our CEO wanted 3 sales for $300,000. We ended up doing 32 sales for $4 million. So it was proven, and we got to go hire more. And to Scott's point a second ago, he came and he kept asking to hire people, and he was pumping the brakes the whole year. We were hiring methodically to make sure this was a repeatable, replicatable process. Now we added in a gifting motion, right? We gift every single person that comes through. We pre-gift people. We have went on a little bit of a hiring spree, and brought people in, and to kind of what Scott's point a second ago about our Q2. I'll kind of talk about the first half of the year in general. We have, do you know how many sales are we at for Outbound?
Outbound alone, it's roughly half of our sales, but we're at 67 total.
So close to the same 30-ish that we were already at last year, and we're closing on that $4 million number already.
Correct.
So
within 6 months.
We are on pace to double last year's outbound efforts. So again, it's why we are so very strong armed in our thought process and our approach, letting people have that autonomy, building that framework. We are looking at new softwares now, because we do have the simple approach that allows us to now start implementing things. But I think we could all probably agree. It doesn't matter. You can have the best playbook in the world. You can have best softwares in the world. Without the people, it's the right people.
I want to speak on, because you brought up enablement, and I'll glaze Scott and his team here real quick. But the impact it brings is not only the structure and those components, but most importantly, when you're talking about any sales role, because sales is a roller coaster, right? And every single role, what enablement provides is stability, and that stability provides culture, and that culture is so important in any type of sales motion or business development motion. And enablement becomes the backbone for that, because what something our BDRs don't have to think about, our AEs don't have to think about is, who am I calling? Is this a quality person? And do I have the right lead in front of me? How do I go find that if I don't have it, right? That support is so valuable in these efforts. There's nothing worse than being an outbound BDR or an SDR and saying like, man, these leads suck. This lead doesn't even exist. It's not even a company anymore. This contact hasn't worked there in 10 years. And I called and asked for him, and they're like, yeah, we fired him 6 years ago, right? There's nothing worse than that. But having that quality input from an enablement team does provide culture value, right? And culture in an outbound motion, it's a grind. It's a hard job day in and day out. So to know that that support is there truly matters.
Yeah, I think from my position, there's this foundational component, right? Get the team in place, get the right softwares in place so that you guys can scale, right? But inevitably, that foundation, as you move towards scaling, needs to be shored up in more ways than people anticipate. And so that's the culture coming in. So the onboarding, that's the inevitability of software breaking. And then, I think one of the biggest components that we focus a lot on is the unavoidable friction that sellers have, especially the business development, is they waste half their time prospecting. They're looking for the right person to even call. They're trying to find companies. They're spending so much time building their own books. And so that's a really important, piece of our motion, is saying, we're going to take that off your plate. We are going to build comprehensive, elaborate books for you so that you focus on the skill. We didn't hire you because you're good at building a book. We hired you because you're good at selling, at talking to people, right? Mm-hmm. That's the skill that you want to focus on, right? And so we take, at least in our enablement motion, is very much like, how can we reduce all this unnecessary friction so that you can call faster, you can connect quicker, and you know how to have these conversations. But ultimately, when you go to the next you don't have this like, who's this? Like, another junk lead. It's like, no, your whole book is solid. You got contact numbers, who to call, what to say, right? Like, that's our whole motion, is that like, you have 40 conversations, you make 50 dials, you have 40 conversations, and all of them are good. People try and add on way later and try and like retrofit it. And I think to your point, Zach, the earlier you can kind of organize your sales team with that lens put in place, it just allows you to scale quicker, smarter, and better.
Yeah, but good God, what salesperson also doesn't want to think about all the other components and just focus on their craft, right? There is a reason why it's successful, is because they do get to just hone in and focus on what they're good at or what their actual job is, and not all the other admin components that slow them down. So it's absolutely a necessity within that.
Okay. And we'll wrap up this episode, guys. A quick closing statement. I'll give one here, and it's always remember why you were hired in business development. Was I hired to be an aggressive marketer? Am I hired to be an AI that's generic? No. Like, you were hired for your personality, your conversation, your creativity. That should be manifest in the work that you do. If it's not, like, you're not doing your job right. Cole, what about you?
Yeah, so this one is to the sales leaders who are scoping out building a team, or in the motion of currently building a team. And I think it's reframing the way you think about an outbound motion or a business development team. And a lot of times we think about it self-centeredly. Their job is to bring more conversations to our business, and that is a key component. But I like to flip it in another way, which is our outbound, inbound business development team is the first experience that they'll ever experience with our company. And when you think about it like that, you start thinking about how you want to put those assets out into the workforce, which is actually providing value and bringing an experience, and not just trying to get an appointment to further your sales agenda. It's truly a marketing wing almost for your business. So I think rethinking the way you think about outreach into that as a marketing component, not just a sales generator as well.
Love that. Zach, close us off.
Yeah, I think mine would be for all those sales leaders out there, C-suite people, owners. Just remember, it doesn't matter how smart you are. You're only as going as far as the people around you can take you. And I think that comes down to people wanting to save money, hiring less than talent. Go after people that align with your morals, your values, that want to help build your ecosystem, pay them what they're worth, keep a good company culture, because I've been in this world now for 12-ish years, and the people I've seen succeed the most have the best team surrounding them.
Love it. Okay, that'll do it for this episode. Like us on Instagram, Spotify, all the places. Give us some feedback. Let us know if you want us to talk about something specific. We appreciate you listening. We appreciate you under oathers sticking with us. Catch you in the next one. Case is closed.